And the title, as I mentioned earlier, is Geopolitical Risk and Macro Result on the Rise of the Trump Administration and the United States Policy. And let's start with the first slide. This is the federal fund rate. The United States Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, and market expectation for the federal fund rate. This is the axis, x-axis, showing the time span of the federal fund rate throughout from 1990s till now, approximately 30 years we are covering. And here you will see the Fed fund rate, and this graph showing here some crisis period, sudden contraction and sudden shrinking in the FOMC federal fund rate. And if there is a sudden decrease, like from here 6.5 to just below the 1%, this is the 2001 dot-com crisis, the internet crisis in the United States. And here from 5 to 0 lower bound, the 2008 global financial crisis, as you see. And here from 2.5 to 0 lower bound again, this is the COVID-19, the pandemic crisis. And after the crisis pass away, we will see some recovery in the federal fund rate. And please take a look at the table here. It will summarize what's happening in the Federal Open Market Committee rate. Here, the 2025, 2026, and 2027, today, next year, and the other year, and the long run, the change in the real GDP year over year in the United States, 1.7 this year. This is the forecast, and the next year is 1.8 and 1.8. So federal United States gross domestic product growth will be around 2% for the next couple of years. And the unemployment rate, one of the other macro financial indicator in the risk market, is the 4.4 for the United States for this year, and 4.3 and 4.3, and the long run is 4.2. So the United States unemployment rate will be around 4%. The headline personal consumption expenditure inflation, this is the inflation, headline inflation, and this is again the year over year change. And this year it will be around 2.7, and next couple of years it will be converged to 2%. The inflation for 2% is Federal Reserve target rate, and this, if the inflation converges and balanced around 2%, this means that Fed is achieving their target while maintaining the price stability in the financial market. So let's focus on the core PCI inflation, and it is 2.8 this year, as you see here, and 2.2 and 2% for the next couple of years, and it will be balanced around, again, 2%. So if you ask this question, what is important here? The most important point is this: the headline and core CPI, meaning consumer price inflation, will be around 2%, because this is the Federal Reserve target rate. If the inflation is above the 2%, Fed takes some monetary and fiscal measures to bring down its 2% target level. And for the change in the real GDP growth, as you see, 1.7 or 2%, around 2%, it is balancing. And unemployment, it will be around 4%. And right now, let's focus on what's happening during the COVID financial crisis and what's happening here. From 2.5%, and before the COVID crisis, we started with the 2.5%, and suddenly, as a response to COVID shock, the federal fund rate drops to 0 lower bound. Then the Fed started to increase the Fed rate. Why? Because there is too much inflation in the market. And to fight with the inflation, Fed started to increase the interest rate level. As you see here, this is the break-even point from the pre-COVID level. And right now, it's past, and when the time is converging to 2023, the Federal Reserve fund rate will be around 5.5%. And from there, when the inflation started to decrease, Fed oriented their Federal Reserve target level inflation orientation outlook. As the inflation go down, the Fed fund rate go down as well. But we are around here. And now, in the long run, the Fed fund rate will be around just 2% or 3% because it is just above the inflation level. And as you see here, it is going down gradually, day by day, month by month. From 4.4%, it will be converging to 3%. And every day you will see on the screen and the newspapers or TV, television screen, you will see that the Trump administration saying that the Powell should decrease the interest rate right now, and right now. Every day, Trump declares that he will be fired, the Powell. Powell should be signed off, or Federal Reserve should take some responsibility and decrease down the United States interest rate, the United States Central Bank interest rate. But Trump is a little bit has a political view rather than the economic view. And the Powell knows that the reality. Why he knows? Because if the Fed make a early rate cut, it will create another inflationary pressure on the price side. And the Powell knows this. It should be go down as the inflation go down. But today, inflation has an inertia and it is a little bit stubborn outlook. Inflation does not go down easily like it goes down during last year. Okay, for that reason, somebody should take measures and should put a view economic side and the Trump putting a view on the political side. And we are trying to understand what is happening in the United States tariffs and what can be the result of this tariff, some measures taken by the Trump administration, and what is the United States tariff rate for the century, from the 18th century till now. As you see, in the 18th century, when the United States established, the tariff rate is around 60%. So they are focusing on the domestic production rather than importing the products from Europe or any other side of the world. But when we converge to the 19th century, the tariff level less than the 20%. And as you model tariff, there is here an exceptional case in the 19th century, and it is again increasing. But then from there on till now, as you see, except this period, because here we have 1929. This is the global Great Depression times, and it is increasing the tariff of the United States as well. But we should make a focus on the overall shape, and until here, from 40% in the millennium century, the tariff around 2% for the United States. But then United States, the Trump administration declares to the rest of the world that as of April 2, they will increase the tariff rate for the rest of the world with an increasing amount. For instance, on the newspapers, you see that Trump, he has a list and declaring this country as this much and this country at this much. But when he declares, some of countries try to make a negotiation with Trump administration, especially the European Union, Mexico, Canada, Latin America, Japan, and the United Kingdom. These countries are trying to make a negotiation, logical negotiation with the United States and Trump power. But one case is exceptional, the China. The China said that he will not make a agreement or negotiation with the United States until they decrease to the tariff revenue or tariff implementation for the United States. Then Trump increasing the tariff to the China as a response. Then China increased, and this is like a trade war in the today's modern world. We see a old trade war on today's modern world because every day China declares additional measure and the United States declares another additional measure to the China. Then what will be the end of this game? The end of this game will be nobody will be the winner. Everybody will be the loser of this. How can I say? This illogical game. This is not a safe game. At the end of this game, everybody will lose. Then Trump started to get this view and try to understand what the other people is saying about this trade war, and he tried to understand what's happening here. For that reason, he started to make a negotiation with China as well. Then 90-day pauses and 19-day pauses for EU, then decrease the China tariff for the 25%. So what can be the macro risk and macro result of this dangerous game? Let's focus on here. Here from the Great Depression, please look at it. From the Great Depression, here 20% tariff we have. Then gradually we are decreasing. And here in the millennium age, we are just on the 2% of the tariff. But then Trump declaring that the tariff will be on the average 20%. This is like a joke for the rest of the world, especially for Japan, UK, or the countries in the Caribbean side, because they are really integrated with the trade union. For the United States, EU have lots of custom union. NAFTA has huge union with the United States. They have free trade. But suddenly, somebody is coming and saying that we will put a 20% tax on your import. This is huge. Then what can be the reflection of this 20% of the tax on the macro indicators? Let's focus on this slide now. Please just take a look at these graphs. Here on the left-hand side, this is the trade policy of the United States and what can be the possible risk on this scenario. Here I have tariffs between the United States and its partners. Please focus on the left-hand side graph and chart. And this chart showing us that this is the tariff between the United States and its trade partners. And this is x-axis and this is y-axis. This line, please focus on this line of reciprocity, meaning that each country put an equal tariff on their side. So if you are on this line, every country put equal tariff to each side. If you below or above, somebody is benefiting and somebody is suffering from the tariff. But if you're on the line, it is equal, reciprocally equal tariff rate for each country. Please focus on the countries here. Please take a look at the list of the countries here on the core side of this graph. And what it is saying, Singapore, Mexico, Taiwan, Japan, all these around zero. Meaning that these countries don't put any tariff to the United States, and United States also don't put any tariff for this country. But for India, what is the problem? India put approximately 12% tariff on the United States product, but the United States is putting only just 2% on the Indian product. And Trump is saying that this is not a fair game. Okay, I will put additional tariff on your import. Why? Because India is benefiting from while it is making the trade with the United States. Because US is only putting 2% tariff, but the India putting approximately 12% tariff on the United States product. So the India is giving current account surplus when he is making with the trade of the United States. And the China, the most exceptional case. And you will understand why Trump fighting with China, but not the rest of the world. Here, please look at this one. This graph is saying that United States is putting 12% tariff on the Chinese product, but the China is putting 18% of the tariff on the United States product. And Trump is saying that no, this is not fair. And because China is exporting lots of products to the United States, and we are buying lots of things from the China. For that reason, I want to make this trade game a little bit more fair. Okay, let's play, but let's make this a fair game. Not to stop to playing. China is not closing the border, or United States is not stopping the trade with China. They are saying that, especially the Trump saying that, let's make this game a little bit fair. And why this is so important for some countries, but not the others. Please focus on this right-hand side here and try to understand that after the Trump declare a list for the rest of the world, why the Mexico, Canada, or South Korea or European Union make a huge reaction for this declaration, but the China is not. Because, ladies and gentlemen, for the Mexico, European Union, or the South Korea, trade is everything. Please look at this part. Export as a percentage of the nominal GDP. What does this graph saying? The trade is approximately 1/3 of the overall economy for Mexico. The trade is 40% for the European Union. The trade is approximately 40% for the South Korea. Trade is everything for this country. And if this country put additional tariff, or United States make a reciprocal tariff for these countries, their trade revenue will go down. And trade is everything for this. It is in the core of the economy. But for the China, it is nothing. China, for the China, please look at this one. The economy is just 14% of the export. For approximately 85% of the economy is coming from other side of the economic subcategories, like the consumption, like the government expenditure, like the infrastructure. And this side is coming from other parts. So you will understand from this graph why South Korea, why the European Union, or why the Mexico make a huge reaction for the United States declaration of the tariff, but the China is not, because the trade with the United States is nothing for China. And here, please take a look at for this one. This is what is happening and what the Trump is declaring for the rest of the world for this revenue of the product. And here, as you see, on imports to the United States, here we are. And on exports for the United States, here we are. And the initial level is the dark red. This dark red is the initial level of the tariff revenue. And this additional part is on the United States import. And after the April 2 and up to the April 2. This is United States import, this is United States export, and this is the average of the world economy for the rest of the world. And what can be the possible result of this dangerous game, global growth forecast for the scenario. So if we put these measures, if we take some measures on the trade side, tariff side, what can be the possible result of this unfair game on the real GDP of the world economies? What can happen? Please focus on this line. Here it is saying post April 2 reference forecast, it will be around 2.8. Normally, before the April 2, it will be around 3.2%. So approximately 0.5% decrease from the world GDP because of this trade war between the United States and the rest of the world. And here, after the April 9, we see additional scenario, but in the base case scenario, in each case, here as you see, we will see approximately 0.5% decrease in the world GDP. Just keep in mind like this, the world GDP will decrease approximately 0.5 if there is no negotiation or if there is no decrease in the tariff revenue or tariff implementation that is done by the United States Trump administration. And global growth revised down significantly and inflation slightly revised up. Please look at now this marvelous graph and chart. On the left hand side we have growth, and on the right hand side we have inflation. And forecast change from January 2025 and the percentage point. The graphs showing the percentage point. Here you will see the list of the countries and the regions. The dark blue is the United States, light blue is the Euro area, the gray is other advanced economies, the red one is China, the orange one is the emerging market and developing economies for the rest of the world, and the white one is the total effect. And please look at this one. What the graph is saying, total effect for the GDP growth will be around 0.5 minus. It is decreasing, right? The global GDP decreasing 0.5. And the most of is coming from the approximately 0.2 is emerging market, right? Here. And growth is decreasing for China, yes, but also decreasing for the United States. And as you see, in 2026, meaning that for the next year, the growth of the United States decrease again, and China also. But for the inflation scenario is a little bit different. This tariff implementation brings additional inflationary pressure for the United States, but negative effect on the inflation of the China. It is decreasing the inflation in China. Okay, so everybody in the Trump administration or in international relations asking this question: if this is decreasing the growth of the United States, and if it is increasing the inflation of the United States, why Trump putting these additional measures on the tariff side? It is heavily political because Trump get huge support from the agriculture and average household of the United States. Then he should give some flowers to those supporters, those advocates who is supporting Trump for the voting ceremony, and Trump should give some flowers for those households, those agriculture side, those average income and low income person that he is trying to make America great again. And everybody want to get those signals, and Trump find the easy way. This should say that I am making the import for the United States harder, and every United States household should buy the domestic production. And as an agriculture people, you will earn more because you will sell more. You are the domestic producer, and if I put the measures on the imports, your products will be sold more. And now here we are putting some uncertainty, tariff, fiscal measures, and other measures on the United States and for the China. Please focus on this two graphs just for 1 minute. Try to understand what this graphs telling us. This is first focus on the title. Forecast change from January 2025. This is a percentage point. This dark blue is uncertainty from the beginning of the year. The red one is the tariffs. This orange one is the fiscal side. The gray one is other, and the blue one, white one is the total revision. For the growth, as you see for the United States, the growth is decreasing for the 2025, approximately 1%, and the most of is coming from the other effect and tariffs and uncertainty. So tariff effect is here, and uncertainty effect is here, and here the others, unnamed one. But for the core inflation, as you see, most of the inflation is coming from the tariff again, and most of the inflation is, other parts of the inflation is coming from the other factors rather than tariff or fiscal measures. And for the 2026, the analyst here saying that the real effect of the tariff implementation will come in the next year, not this year. So in the 2026, there will be additional pressure on the core price inflation because of the tariff done by the United States. But for the China, the case is a little bit different, and the picture is a little bit changing, because here we are putting the red one. Because of the tariff, the price will go down, it is saying, because everybody will buy the United States, China domestic product, but the growth decreased because of the tariff, but the growth will be positively affected from the fiscal measures. And in the next year, 2026, growth will be negative side, both because of the uncertainty and the tariff effect. But the inflation, overall inflation is negative, inflationary effect is negative for the China, and most of the negative effect is coming from the other factors and tariff side. But some additional positive pressure on the inflation is coming from the fiscal side, because China is implementing expansionary fiscal policy last 2 years. And for the China inflation, it will be totally minus, and all of the effect is coming from because of the tariff implementation done by the United States. So here we are. This is addressing the domestic imbalances can help improve the external balances. Here the China and the United States, and we are covering from 2024 till now, 6 years. And this is showing that current account balance scenarios as a percentage of the GDP. Maybe lots of the attendees here knowing that what we mean by current account balance. Current account balance is basically the trade and services balances. Trade balances is export and import, and services balances is what you export as a services and what you import as a services. For instance, tourists coming from the rest of the world for your country and consuming in your country is a services income for your country. Okay, so this current account balance showing us that what can be happen in the United States and China reference forecast. As you see, current account balance is positive for the China, and the China forecast will be positive, but it is a little bit down pressure. From 2% here, the current account balance will go down gradually for the China till the 2030s, and it will be positively affect the United States current account balance as a percentage of GDP, because it is -4 for the United States, because United States giving 4% of the GDP current account deficit. But with these Trump measures, it will decrease those current account deficit to 2% for the GDP. So the only positive effect when we take the measures for the growth, inflation, unemployment, etc., the only positive effect is coming from the current account balance side, trade side for the United States. And here, while manufacturing employment share is declining, its output share remains stable. And because we are manufacturing the employment, right? And we are producing with the employment output. And here on the 1970s, the Germany output and employment here, but right now it is just 20%. And for the United States, it's a little bit stable, but even less than the Germany. And for the output, it is around here. But for the employment for the United States, it is also shrinking from 25% to just below the 10%. So if they also take measures, the Trump administration, if take measures about the policy done by the employment side, they are saying that, yes, we are taking some measures, but these measures should also produce some results for the employment market as well. And here, this is the effect of tariff. Please look at this one. If you put a tariff on the left-hand side, this panel A, okay, if I put a tariff, it will decreasing my GDP. Okay, the tariff decreasing the GDP of the country. And the same tariff also decreasing the productivity in the same country. So productivity decreasing and the output decreasing. Unemployment first a little bit go down, but then it is increasing. And the inequality, the income inequality between the household in the domestic economy is increasing. Negative, 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 and the real exchange rate, it is a little bit appreciating. Your purchasing power is increasing. And trade balance to the GDP ratio, not too much significant, but it will be around 0. So there is no significant effect on trade or the real exchange rate, but all these 4 big macro indicators, like the output, productivity, unemployment, and inequality, all those effect is negative for the country who is imposing a tariff. So everybody is discussing today, if we are the loser at the end of this game, why we are implementing such a tariff. It is just a political choice, ladies and gentlemen. It is not economic. Okay, the economic result, welfare result of this tariff is negative. But Trump is trying to satisfy the supporters that is coming from agriculture and domestic household. And here, please look at this slide, the slide on one side, and it is saying that this time a real consumption for the economy is decreasing if it is implemented at high for the next couple of years. And the real investment first stable and go down. Real export suddenly goes down, shrinking, and during 5 years, it is approximately minus 1.5. And remaining for it is also going down. So the tariff real effect for real export, real import, real investment, and real consumption, it is also negative. So making and implementing a tariff for the